everybody. Welcome to another episode of City Girls Pod. And this is a show where we break down all things Sex in the City, including And Just Like That. And we today are talking about season 2, episodes 3 and 4. And I am Rachel Wagner, and Jax is here.
Hi, everybody. Yeah. Wowee. Woo wow.
You can tell that I really enjoy podcasting with Jax because this show, I feel like Jax, you need to talk me off the ledge because I just don't know if I can do it anymore. Like, I feel like we could literally be talking about anything and it would be more enjoyable than this show. Like, we could just get on every 2 weeks and just talk like about just our lives and what, like, that would be
catch up.
Yeah. This show sucks. I hate this.
I'm dying. It took all of my energy not to just call you yesterday to talk about this episode, but I was like, okay, we have to save it for the podcast, because as soon as you texted me, I was like, oh, I have things to say.
Like, and honestly, their choices are so befuddling that it is almost interesting, because you just think, like, from a marketing perspective, their choices make no sense. From like a cynical perspective of them like crafting shit, their choices make no sense. From like a characters that I'm invested in perspective, make no sense. And literally, they were reprehensible in one of this episode that I'm just like, I feel bad that I added a watch tally to it was unforgivable.
We were texting each other and I was like, there are two things I'm really angry about in these episodes. And then you said like 1 or 2 or 3 things. And I was like, oh, wait, I'm also angry about that. Wait, never mind. Also angry about that.
Also, like, there's stuff that if it's trying to be, like I said, if it's trying to be sort of an activist show with like an agenda, their choices make no sense. Like, why on earth do you have Seema pulling out a gun? Like, that makes no sense for the kind of characters that they've built up. I mean, that's just one of the many things. Like, if you're trying to show that these are sort of liberal, empowered women, then what was that? And I mean, and we'll talk about what happens with the male student, but I just couldn't believe it. Like, oh my gosh. Like, I guarantee you, if you and I were given a weekend to brainstorm sequel to Sex in the City, I guarantee it, we would come up with better story plots that make sense and have something to do with the characters. I mean, these episodes make the second movie look redeemable. That's how bad this show is.
You know what I want to watch? I want to watch, rather than even covering the rest of it just like that, I want to watch reaction videos of you watching it. That, for me.
And again, like, their choices make no sense. If you're trying to show that Che is an empowered choice for Miranda, why do you have Miranda written the way that she is? And why on earth would you have Steve be back in his full, like, amazingness with, like, him boxing for the extended portion, like, to look all hot? Like, that doesn't make any sense for, like, the characters that you're building up and that you're writing. And like what are you doing? Like, what is
Steve's? I didn't know we were getting Steve, and I was like, oh, another episode.
Like, I was
Steve.
glad, because it was such an atrocity last season to see him, and to see him so buff, I was like, yeah. But it didn't make any sense for the story that they're telling. Why on earth would they do that? Are they trying to make Miranda be questioning? And we'll talk more about,
it's interesting. She doesn't seem like she's questioning. And also it seems there's not even a tenderness with Steve. Like, it's like he's just some annoying little like guy that she met at a bar one time. Like,
it's like
there's
they
no
heard
even
the feedback and they were like, okay, we want him to look awesome, but they didn't do the character work, and it makes no sense for Miranda's character. And so then it's just frustrating. You're just like, what? Okay.
Yes, but I will say, as soon as I saw the glow up that is Steve in the episode, I was like, Rachel's gonna like this.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the first episode is called Chapter 3, and it's Carrie struggles with a audio recording for her new book. Seema's Birkin bag is stolen. Charlotte and Lisa are on a MILF list. Miranda considers a tattoo and flies back to New York to comfort Brady after his breakup with Louisa. This one was directed by Michael Patrick King, so it does have that pedigree, and it was co-written by him.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah, I just don't even know where to begin. But it starts out with Carrie. She sees Lizette, the neighbor, and she's like, oh, so fun. And gets invited to Lizette's jewelry pop-up show kind of thing.
Can I already say, I already had a problem with this, and I wanted to ask you. She's like, it's so embarrassing. I'm on my way to record my book. I'm recording the audiobook. Why is that embarrassing? And makes her a loser.
Yeah, I am so confused about that. I think they did that just so they could have her say, you're Carrie Bradshaw. There's nothing embarrassing about that.
Yep.
But it doesn't make sense. This is literally the woman who wore the naked dress on the bus.
Yes. Like, and you're doing a successful thing. Like, I don't understand why that would be embarrassing. If she was like, oh, it's out of my comfort zone, we would still go, naked dress, is it really? However, it's not embarrassing. She acted like she was a loser.
And she will have done audiobooks for her other books. So it makes no sense, like most of the show. And I mean, I can understand why it's like emotional for her to read these scenes, but Carrie's reaction to it and her saying that she has COVID and lying makes no sense for her character. Like, she would just say, like, they would understand it's obviously a difficult sequence for her to read. Instead of lying about having COVID, she would just say, I'm struggling with this. And it's like when you make an audiobook, you have like, there's like producers and directors, and like part of their job is to like work with the talent and get the best performance out of the talent. So she would communicate that she's struggling with a particular section. Maybe they only do like a paragraph for, and then take a break and then another paragraph, and, or whatever it might be. But Carrie has been writing books for decades, literally, and doing audiobooks. So it makes no sense.
I do want to give a shout out to the actress Ashley Atkinson, who is in this episode, though. Mm-hmm. She's so good. She's the one who plays the person that's like setting this all up for Carrie. She's like a wonderful theater, and and she's just good. She's really great. I like her, and I always see her around New York, and every time I see her, I'm like, I love your work. So she was great, but like literally, like I was like, can we just have more of her? Like, I'm more interested in what she's doing. What's going on?
Yeah. And I was kind of shocked at just how flippant they were about COVID.
I know,
like,
me too.
I do think that things got way out of control, and there's a lot of interesting things to say, but just being like her lying to like all of her friends, and I don't know. I mean, just to me, that was a little bit strange.
Well, even in a world where, say, the lie popped out, like, because I know there's been a few times, it's like, over the course of this, our pandemic journeys, that I've been like, oh man, it'd be really tempting just to take a couple days off and have COVID right now. Not to make
Mhm.
light of it, because I've had COVID twice, and one time it was really bad. And for people who are immunocompromised, like I'm not making light of it. But why did she just lie to the people, the audiobook people, but then tell her friends, like, I said I had COVID because I just can't do it. Like,
Mhm.
instead she lies to her best friends. Like, that didn't make sense. Even if she
Well,
would
I
have
mean,
lied to
she
the audiobook
lies
people.
to some of them, and they're sending her food and stuff, and then
Yeah.
eventually she tells them because she wants to go to this party. Like, I don't know, it just feels skeevy to me.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
didn't have a very good, and like you said, Rachel, like, it is perfectly acceptable for her to say, it's really difficult for me to revisit this. It's triggering. This is a trauma that I had, and I
Mhm.
would prefer that an actor read this, or I prefer to take it slow.
We also haven't gotten any backstory of this book.
Nope,
Of
we
her
haven't.
like writing the book, like of her writing these scenes. Like, it's just come out of nowhere.
Mhm. Well, it's like they decided, okay, we're done with the podcasting plot,
Oh my gosh, thank goodness.
so we need her in a.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
We have this guy stealing Seema's purse. And I guess we're supposed to buy that this guy took the purse and just cared about the wallet in the purse, which would be incredibly stupid, because not only is it obviously, even if the person didn't know that it's a Birkin, which are tens of thousands of dollars, but even if they didn't know that, they would still know it's like a nice purse. And like, you would be incredibly stupid just to take the wallet, because yeah, you can charge up some credit cards, but like for a couple of hours, and that all of that's going to be canceled very quickly. So this person would be incredibly stupid to just leave the purse on the road.
I'm also not understanding, and maybe I missed this, the time frame from when it got stolen to when she found it. Because if he did ditch it, let's just say that, he would have ditched it right away and someone else would have found it.
It was confusing because didn't she see it online? And she was like, that's my purse. And then she's walking along.
Yeah.
And then she sees it. So that was strange. Maybe I missed something, or maybe that was someone else, but that was her purse, right? At the end, or someone else's purse, or
that was my feel, Rachel. I was watching this going, have I missed something? And no, I don't know if we did. I mean, people who are listening, if you've watched this,
I can't watch it twice. I'm sorry.
We're not going to be going back and braving that again.
And so then we get a little bit of a scene with Naya and this guy with her mic. So she officially separated from her husband then at this point.
Apparently. I don't think we got a lot of background on that either.
Because they had the fight over him suggesting they use a surrogate.
Yeah.
And that was evidently the final straw for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, her mic falls down. He asks permission to help her. And then he basically asks her out. They're going to go out. So
I actually thought this was charged with a little bit of like sexual tension that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And he was still respectful, I thought. He was but she led the way with the, aren't you going to buy me dinner? And I thought it was actually like a pretty good interaction.
Yeah. Yeah. It was good. So this thing with Miranda, oh my gosh. So first of all, I don't know. Like, I don't think I've been on the Warner Brothers lot. I've done the tour. I've seen it. There are not very many sitcoms that are filmed in front of a live studio audience anymore. That is pretty rare.
Yeah.
Most of them are multi-camera shows.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just hardly do that at all. But we're supposed to believe that Che's show is like an old school sitcom. Right. About, even though it's about them being non-binary. And that seems to be the big joke of like hilarious. And it was weird to me because Che seems to hate the jokes, the non-binary jokes. Then they are super offended at Miranda for interrupting what they had just described as this cringe, horrible scene. They're really mad that Miranda ruining the scene, which I was just kind of like, what? But the whole scene makes absolutely no sense. So first of all, you're supposed to believe that this is a live show. Fine. Okay. And that Miranda, she wants to be available for Brady because Luis has broken up with him. He's very upset. She has a giant note phone, like a huge phone. They're confiscating phones and putting them in the, I forget what they're called, but they're like special bags that you can't get to them. And she supposedly just all that it takes for the security is to say, oh, I don't have a phone because I'm like free living or whatever.
Yeah.
And the security guard doesn't check that she has like a huge phone. It's not like it's like a tiny flip phone or something. She has like a huge phone, like right in her bag. Like they
massive Android that she doesn't know how to work.
And then if she knows that she's coming into this live recording, she would absolutely put her phone on silent. Especially if she knows it's contraband, it's not supposed to be there. There's absolutely no way that this smart, intelligent person would bring that phone, huge phone, that she would be allowed to bring it in, that she would bring it in, and that she would have it on ringer. That makes no sense.
No sense. This is like the takedown of Miranda Hobbs. Like, this is like it's unbelievable. Like, I thought a plot line that could have made sense is, okay, she's in, and not that this is inspired, but like she's in line, she gets the call from Brady. She decides not to go to the taping because she wants to be available for Brady. And then there's a weird thing with Che where it's like, how could you not be there for me? And that's
Che doesn't even like the show. They don't even like the scene. So why would they care if Miranda is in the audience?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. And they just have done such a terrible job of showing why Che would be interested in Miranda at all.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
They are supposedly this free-spirited new person.
Mm-hmm.
And why on earth would they be interested in this Hausfrau version of Miranda, who evidently doesn't have a job, is evidently in New York, still living with Steve, which we'll talk about. And, you know, it makes no sense. It's like if they had Che Diaz with my mom, like that would make as much sense as having them with Miranda in this version of Miranda, who's not Miranda.
Che Diaz with Rachel's mom.
It would make as much sense.
It would make as much sense. I mean, okay, what was Miranda thinking when she's like, oh, I'll answer it during the taping if he calls? Like, it's so disrespectful to both Brady and Che. Like it was bonkers. Although I will say I did enjoy Tony Danza in this scene. He's rocking it as the dad. But like, watch, we all knew where it was going, so there was no payoff either. It was like, are you kidding me?
I'm going to sneak in a giant phone with it on sound into the live recording that I'm not supposed to have it. Like what?
No.
It's embarrassing. I feel embarrassed for Cynthia Nixon. I feel embarrassed for the show. I feel embarrassed for all involved. And it makes me mad because I just don't understand if they're trying, what's their goal? Like,
Yeah.
I assume that their goal is to show non-binary people in a positive light, right? I would think that was what you'd want to do. And I'm all for that. I have no problem with that. Then why would you write it this way? Like, I would expect them to go the reverse and have Miranda be like the other cliche. I would expect her to be like the girl boss and to be like super empowered and super, like flawless and perfect. And I would never expect that they have a character that is exploring her sexuality. Fine. I have no problem with that. But their answer for that is to make the character mousy and have no job and like having to defend that she's caring about her only child who has just been dumped by his very serious girlfriend. Let's remember that they were like
living together
and in last season. It's unbelievable. I mean, I can't get over it. I guess what's especially frustrating to me is I just don't understand it. Like, it makes no sense.
I would love if they would give us an interview where they explain this, because they've got to know. They've got, like, to me at this point though, Che is actually more likable than Miranda. Miranda's really on my last nerve.
They are more likable because their actions make sense.
Yeah.
Like, aside from the interest in Miranda, which makes no sense.
That doesn't make sense, but you're right. Everything else kind of does.
Whereas Miranda, the character is so poorly written that it, even if I had only seen And Just Like That, and I didn't have the previous character, I still would think it was a terribly written character and a terrible example of an empowered woman. And so in that sense, it's like way more frustrating, especially when I know how great of an actress Cynthia Nixon is. I mean, she could crush it on the stage. She can crush it in so many different roles. And so the fact that they're doing this, it's so frustrating. I mean, I guess I just have to look at it as some kind of like autopsy of a disaster, because I think on that sense it is kind of interesting to be like, what?
And I wonder what the arc will be for the rest of this season. This is my plea to get you to keep watching. What will happen for the rest of the season, because maybe we will see her make this journey, but right now we are in rough waters. But thank goodness she at least went back to be with Brady, because for a second I thought she was gonna not do that. And I got worried.
Fight between Che and Miranda was so cringe. It was terrible.
It was bad.
It was so bad.
Juxtaposed with the conversation that she had with Charlotte, where Charlotte was telling her she was a good mom. And I was like, okay, you go, Charlotte. You're being the hype girl that we know and love. And it felt very real to me. She's like, you're not overreacting, but he is going to be okay, but you're doing the right thing. Like, I just really thought that was like, it felt a bit old school Sex in the City.
Yeah. Well, and so they have, speaking of Charlotte, so they have Nia, Lisa, Carrie, and Charlotte all at lunch. And I enjoyed that. I was like, oh, this feels sort of old school.
Yeah, it was fun.
And that was fun. And, I didn't mind them talking about the MILF list. That was funny. But
here's the thing for me. I actually loved them talking about the MILF list. That to me was like, this is freaking hilarious. Like, there's this MILF list. They do care they're on it. All the moms care. That was great.
Yeah. And I enjoyed Carrie running into Bitsy. That was fun, but
I was disappointed that now we won't see any Nathan Lane for sure, because they've killed him off.
Yeah. Yeah, and they say, "Oh well, I thought he was gay," and then Bitsy, and maybe that's in the next one. I can't remember. When Bitsy says, "Oh, he was, but it just made him try harder," which was kind of a funny line.
Yeah, she's funny. I like her.
Yeah, and so that was enjoyable. Then I thought there was some truth in the conversation that, oh, the second year's harder than the first. You feel farther and farther away from him. And then the hole never fills, but new growth will grow around it.
Yeah, I thought this was a really important scene, you know, talking about grief, and that is very real. And I did enjoy this. It's like they're giving us little sparks of light in an otherwise very dark episode.
Because it is true. I mean, when you lose somebody, and I thankfully have never lost an immediate family member yet. I've lost, my grandparents have all passed on. A couple cousins have passed on, but nobody in my immediate family, thankfully. But still, when it first happens, there is the big outreach and helps you get through it. And I've heard this from a lot of other people that year 2, year 3, like you can still be dealing with it and still be struggling with it, and everybody else has moved on.
Yeah. Everyone else has moved on with their lives, but you still are continuing with all the anniversaries and like the first Christmas without someone, the first birthday, like all those things. And, grief isn't linear. So it's just, you deal with it, constantly. It's just part of being human.
I also thought it was fun seeing Carrie go shoe shopping.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. And I would like for them to, ever since this, especially the second movie, they've just lost any sense of any kind of financial insecurity that used to be in the show for Carrie. And she married big, so she's super rich. So, that's fine, I guess. But it starts to feel a little bit cloying in the next episode when she can just like write $100,000 checks because she's a little awkward. Like, doesn't like what?
She's a little awkward.
Well,
she's like, hey,
I'm a little uncomfortable at this party, so I guess I'll give you 100,000.
100K.
Like, I need to invite Carrie to my party.
I know, right? We'll have a podcast party.
Yeah. So I don't know. And like I said, that's been a long time gone since but there used to be some like interesting episodes of the show where, why doesn't Charlotte give Carrie money, and that conflict that they had, and then Charlotte ends giving her the wedding ring and things like that, and that she was actually like upset about the fact that her shoe gets taken at the party because it was a big investment, and now it's just like money doesn't matter at all.
No,
but nevertheless, it was fun to see her like shoe shopping.
Yeah, there's a lot of decadence that like there's part of me that's like, oh my gosh, it feels frivolous, but at the same time, it's the show, so it's fun.
Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by W Rated, the podcast where we willingly watch the world's worst rated movies. Join me, Daisy,
and me, Claire, as we break down the IMDb Bottom 100, choosing a different film from the list every episode.
We take a deep dive into the plot, production, release, and reviews, usually with a special guest, to uncover if these films are truly as bad as everyone says they are.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Good Pods, and anywhere else you find your podcasts.
So then they have Miranda thinking about getting a tattoo. And she's thinking about getting a robot, I guess.
There's something I don't understand about this scene. Like the guy, the tattoo artist, was a good actor, but it seemed like we were supposed to be like, this scene is so profound. He's like, yeah, Miranda, like everything feels kind of cringe.
Like we're supposed to be like, wow, she's super empowered. She almost thought about getting a tattoo.
Totally.
Like what?
Of a robot.
Of a robot. Yeah, what? Yeah, it is kind of ironic that she's become the house frau and she's going to get the Jetsons robot housekeeper tattoo.
Yes. Oh my goodness. They're trolling us with these episodes.
I think so.
Just trolling us. And we're covering it like they're actually trying to do something.
So then they're all at like PTA or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they all get thirsty over this male student. And I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't believe that. I mean, you're talking about this is the same show that supposedly, Samantha was your person with no inhibitions, even though we've talked about many times she's not a hippie.
Yeah.
But like, remember the whole episode with Samantha where she meets the college Sam Jones?
Yeah.
Who's a virgin who she totally could have taken advantage of, but
Totally.
she has actual integrity and morals.
And he was of age, by the way.
And he was of
Sam
age.
Jones, yeah.
Yeah. And now you have all of these women. I mean, Charlotte was kind of objecting to it, but all of these women being thirsty after a child.
This is so uncomfortable and upsetting. Like, again, the MILF list I thought was freaking hilarious. But this is so problematic in the fact that, yes, of course, if the genders were reversed. And I understand the power dynamics are a little bit different between men and women, of course. But it's the same thing of like, yes, he doesn't look like a child, but he is, just the way a lot of young women don't look like children, but they are. And the fact that they are there getting thirsty over him and we're supposed to think it's funny. Like, I feel guilty for having a huge crush on Timothée Chalamet, and he's of age, but he's really cute. Anyway, I wrestle with that.
Right.
So it's like this thing of like, he is literally a child.
Like, I just couldn't believe it. I mean, this is a show that, yes, was edgy and yes, was, trying to say things about different relationships and things like that. But I never felt like it lost integrity until this. This is just absolutely, I mean, I guess there was the bisexual episode, which was terrible. And there were some bad episodes, but this was gross.
I also think that there's a way, and I'm thinking about this out loud, so I might be wrong because it's a newly formed thought. You could have made the same sort of joke in a different way of it being like, okay, they thought like a nerdy kid made the list, but they found out it was a cool kid. And they're like, oh, it's I feel better about myself because he's cool. Like, I think there could have been something in there that would have hit and I would have laughed, or they find out it's the nerdy kid and they're not so invested in it, whatever it is.
Here's how you make it like palatable, at least, is you have Lily in on the conversation and you have her be the one who's like, look how hot, and then all the moms can be like, oh yeah, we see it.
That's
problem
I love that.
solved.
I love that. That's exactly right. Okay, and just like that, we're here for you.
Yeah.
We're here for you. Because you're right. If she was like, oh, he's the hottest kid in the school or whatever, and they're like, okay, like that's cool.
Yeah.
100%, Rachel. But having him walk out and tails and like tongues wagging, it was really upsetting.
It was gross. It was gross. So then we get this scene. So Carrie goes to the jewelry show despite having lied about having COVID, which is probably really stupid because evidently she's a public figure in this world and she's going to be photographed at this event. And that's stupid. But and like Lizette is going to have other shows and you just be like, Lizette, I have COVID. Like, if you're going to make that lie, you have to just make the lie. But nevertheless, so she goes. And then there's this guy that's like stealing all the jewelry, which makes no sense that you would have no security for this thing. Like, what? Also, like, Lizette would definitely have insurance on these pieces. If you're talking, when did they say this was Bergdorf or someplace, Bergali or whatever? It was some like designer thing pop up.
It was some designer pop up.
You would absolutely have insurance.
100%. And there would actually be security that was there.
Yeah.
Also, someone wouldn't just go in there and steal it like that.
No way.
You steal like one or two pieces, maybe, if you could. But like he was just walking around.
Yeah.
Like also, by the way, in the age that we're in with social media, they could have filmed him. That's the most powerful thing they could do. Is film him.
Well, and so then you're supposed, and it was like there were like tons of people that could have like taken him down. And then you're supposed to buy that Seema has a gun in her bag. And is there been anything in Seema's character that would lead us to believe that she's the type of person that has conceal and carry gun with her at all times?
No. And like, I guess it was kind of a funny bit that it was a cigarette lighter, but like, it just felt weird.
Yeah. And then she smokes after the gun and people are like, oh, why are you smoking? And it's like, and I get that's like a thing with Sex and the City because Carrie smokes for so long and so much. But it was just kind of like, they've literally had like armed robbery here. And are we supposed to like be equating them on a similar level, or what are they trying to say here? Are they trying to say that gun laws are stupid because smoking laws are stupid, or are they like what are they trying to say with this scene? Are they trying to encourage everyone in New York to have a gun? Like what?
It even makes that, you know what they want to do, Rachel, this is like what you said before, where they want to say the line like, you're Carrie Bradshaw. Someone thought in their head that they want this scene where they're laying on the bed together, comforting each other. And Carrie has to be like, we'll get through this kind of thing. But then they think about some ridiculous way for them to get there.
Yeah. So and Lizette says that it's gone. And again, that makes no sense. She would absolutely have insurance on her stuff. So, I mean, but then Carrie like gets the strength because of this moment with Lizette and Seema with the gun. But she finishes chapter 3 reading it, and then she goes out drinking with the rugby team, and then that finally gives her COVID.
Yeah,
and that's I guess the joke. Like, ha ha ha.
That's how I got COVID.
Like, what? Oh my gosh,
okay,
so terrible.
Okay.
I give this episode, I don't know, 2. I can't.
Yeah, I'm gonna Rachel, your faces are the best though. I'm gonna give it a 3. It's not okay. It's not okay to objectify kids like this. It's really not. It's really not.
Objectifying children and I guess gun violence.
Yeah. There's so much.
I never thought that would be an episode of Sex and the City, but
yeah, it's really hard too, because it wasn't like for example, there were some problematic episodes of the original Sex and the City, of course, and things that we pointed out, but it was like those were things in the episode that the rest of the episode still had good things. Like there were problematic things, but this was like things that were legitimately offensive. And then like just kind of crappy storytelling.
We're also supposed to believe that Miranda has never had a conversation with Brady about her and Steve splitting up. Like, are you kidding me right now? She has, I mean, I would have thought from the way that they've been describing Che and Miranda's relationship, I would have thought that was like way in the past. Like it had happened long ago.
This is the family counseling scene was very upsetting also, in the sense that, by the way, I love that therapist.
Next episode.
Oh, that's in the next episode. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that Brady is just like, oh, everyone's breaking up these days. I'm just like, what? Anyway, so this sorry, I didn't interrupt.
Oh no, I was just like, what is happening? Yeah, I forgot that was in the next episode because I have things to say about that too.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
So Carrie gets an offer to write a column for Seniors Magazine. Charlotte and Lisa celebrate the start of camp and their child-free summer. Miranda navigates life back in NYC. And this is called Alive. And like the thing is that Charlotte's kids are teenagers. So like they really shouldn't be that high maintenance at this point.
Totally. I think that something that I did like that resonated with me, or just the feeling of it, is because I used to be a nanny in New York, and even for some older kids that were like 12 and 13, there is sort of that feeling of like when the kids go off to camp that I've seen, like being involved with families that the parents are like, oh wow, like what are we gonna do with our summer? So like that kind of resonated, and I thought it's a very like New York kind of like elite family thing that I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, they're not that high maintenance because they kind of do their own thing. Like, I can't believe that Charlotte and Harry can't get it on.
Yeah. I mean, that felt old school Sex and the City to me, the Charlotte and Harry part of this. It was kind of funny. It was kind of fun. Although, like, I mean, Charlotte has definitely changed a lot, because it wasn't that long ago that she did not like anything kinky. Can we say that?
Well, I thought that it was funny. She's like, it's a special treat since the girls are gone. Like this was kind of fun. Like you said, Rachel, it feels very old school Sex and the City. I like that, we're seeing Charlotte coach Harry on how to do Kegels that he confuses with Kugel, and it's a fun little bit. It's them being able to have a sort of quote unquote marital issue that isn't serious, that is kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, and so I'm just so confused about what they want us to feel about Steve. Like we said, so they show him like boxing, super buff, like way to go. It looked really good. David Eigenberg, he looked really good.
Last we saw Steve, he was losing his hearing aids on the couch, and now he's like, okay.
Yeah. It's just confusing. Like, what do they want us to feel about Steve? Do they want us to think that Miranda made a mistake? Or I don't know. Like, what is it? It's just confusing storytelling.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they were like, oh, we want to show like how he's grown as a person. Like, or like you said, like Rachel, maybe they heard the feedback of like, we don't want to make a loser out of Steve. Poor Steve.
But it just ended up feeling confusing. So then they go to this therapy, and Brady is literally right in the middle of it. And Brady says he's not starting college. And that makes Miranda upset. And he's saying, I'm going to take like a gap year, or
that's like, what it seemed like to me.
Yeah. And so then, I mean, it's kind of interesting because she was evidently okay with him living with his girlfriend as a minor in their house. But, the idea of him not going to college, I guess, is triggering for Miranda. But it just feels unbelievable that they have never had these conversations. I would have thought this had happened months ago.
This is absolutely bizarre. Like they're in family therapy, which I think is wonderful. The therapist was also in Only Murders in the Building last season, and I think she's really funny. So she's like a gosh darn delight. But this is something that they would be deeply unpacking in therapy about what it's like to have your parents split up. Your mom is coming out. How is that affecting your dad? How is that like there's all of this would be discussed. Like, does he even know that she's dating Che? He does, right?
It seems like he knows, but still doesn't realize, I guess, how serious their relationship is, I guess. But does the show want us to take their relationship seriously? Because then is Che supposed to be like poor? Because like the big joke is, got IKEA furniture. Like that was a weird product placement. Like,
I know,
what?
it totally was. I think Che is now supposed to have some sort of money because they moved to Hudson Yards in what looks like a relatively nice apartment, which would be like a decent amount of money.
That was seriously the big joke of, I've got all this furniture that keeps falling apart.
Yeah.
Because it's from IKEA.
Which
weird product placement for them. Like, great. I want to go buy their stuff. It's showing falling apart.
The Peloton curse. What? The Peloton killed big and the IKEA furniture keeps falling apart.
And so then there's this whole thing with Miranda and Che and Lyle, the ex-husband, with Che not even considering the fact that maybe Miranda might not want to be in a threesome. You think that you would talk about it, especially a threesome with your ex-husband. That's kind of weird. Like somebody that you have a history with. Like, what?
This scene completely enraged me. Here's the thing. I think people should be more open about different kinds of lifestyles with their sexuality. Like, as far as like, if you want to have an open marriage, if you want to be poly, if you want to have a threesome, whatever you want to do. And maybe this is something that Miranda would be interested in exploring, to spring it on your partner when they think that they are going to be just in bed with you. And I'm sorry, like he just reaches over and starts touching Che. Like, I was loving the banter that was happening before of like, two exes that are like now friends, because I actually didn't realize that Che was still attracted to him. But this was so upsetting. And then of course, not only do they have this thing where like Miranda's put in a terribly awkward position, she ends up, instead of being empowered and being like, hey, this situation really isn't cool that we didn't talk about it, and like leaves, she gets a gosh darn Charlie horse. And again, it's like she ends up just looking like kind of like a loser.
Yeah.
Like I wish I didn't have to use the word loser so many times, but it's not me saying it. It's like what they're trying to like paint her as. And I don't like it.
I just don't understand what they're trying to do with the characters. How's this supposed to make us feel about Che?
It's also like, oh, well, if Miranda wasn't there, would Che have hooked up with her would Che have hooked up with their ex-husband? Like, yeah. And like,
it seems like it.
And if that's the parameters of their relationship, great. But to me, it seems like they think they're in a monogamous relationship.
Yeah.
That's
why Che makes no sense as a character. They are supposed to be this free-spirited, character, but yet she's in this relationship with Miranda, the housefrau. And so it doesn't make any sense.
I was cringing so hard too in the line where Che and, sorry, forget her ex-husband's name.
Lyle.
Oh yeah. When Che and Lyle were chatting about their marriage, and like they really sound like they had a good thing going for a while, and they obviously have this friendship, and they're talking about bringing a woman into the relationship, And then Miranda's like, well, I was cutting carrot sticks for Brady's lunch. Like, why are you like, you're saying these things that just feel so cringe. And like,
Yeah.
you're making yourself sound uncool when really she just had a different life. It wasn't like there was anything wrong with her life before.
Well, yeah. And Shay's super judgmental of Miranda for going to help Brady. And again, it's like Brady is her only child.
Totally.
And of course she's going to go. It was unbelievable. So then we have this awful scene with this dinner party. So Lisa supposedly is this overachiever, seeing her. So, and you're supposed to buy that she gets full and complete control of sending out the invites to her husband, which makes no sense for her character, that she wouldn't at least check. And evidently he forgets to hit send in the invites. And so the big joke is that they have this very expensive dinner, and the only people there are her father, her mother-in-law, and a few other people.
Victor Garber.
Personally. Yeah, Victor Garber. And I mean, I was excited to see Billy D. Williams because,
totally,
you know, I mean, he's iconic. And so I'm always happy to see him as her dad. But this mother-in-law, the problem is that when characters don't behave, I don't mind characters that are difficult or rude or opinionated, all fine. But when they do so in ways that aren't reasonable, that don't make sense for their character, it does not make sense that this woman would behave this way. I mean, she's somebody who is going to want to appear socially high, socially like better than everybody else. She's the last person that's going to say the things out loud that she's thinking and feeling. Like, if anything, it would have made way more sense for her to be just sitting in a corner judging everybody,
100%.
Maybe making like little like comments to the side of like, can you believe they forgot to get the cake, or, you know, something like that. But to be outright just is not reasonable for her character. And so it becomes frustrating. And it just was so terrible. This whole scene was awful.
Yeah, it was just, well, I will say though, like Lisa looks amazing in that dress. So that was a plus, but it's like so fun and flowy and colorful, but it does not make sense that the mother-in-law continually acts like an emotional terrorist. Like it is way too much. And like you said, like if she was passive aggressive or something that was a little bit more nuanced or interesting, we could buy it, and it could be even more cutting, but it's so over the top that you don't believe it.
You don't believe it. And it's too much. It's obviously making us want to side with Lisa, but the scene is, you feel manipulated because it's not authentic. It's not emotionally true. It's not a well-written, engaging, interesting scene.
No, it's not.
Yeah. There were a few nice moments with Lisa's father, with Billy D. Williams, because like any human, if somebody was treating their daughter the way that this insane person is treating her, you would do that, you know, you would stand up for your daughter.
They're acting like, oh, don't get our mom and dad together. You know how they fight. It's like, no, because your mom is very, very mean.
Yeah.
She's cruel.
Very mean.
Yeah.
Very, very mean. It's just awful, terrible. But there's this guy, Mark Kasabian, at the party, Lisa's party, Victor Garber. And he says, I always remember memorable people, because he remembers Charlotte, working for the gallery. And I mean, that would be an interesting plot for Charlotte if she started working for the gallery again, because again, her kids are practically grown up. I mean,
she was like, oh, they need me more than ever. It's like, oh, I guess she's just scared to get back into it.
Yeah, which would be interesting. Like that would be fine.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have any problem with Lisa having a strict demanding mother-in-law. You could have that be an interesting plot point, but
yeah.
their choices have to be reasonable. I mean, she's making Bunny look reasonable.
Oh, Bunny, and she was a delicious character because you bought it, and I buy that Bunny would act like that.
Yeah, her when she would speak out, it was usually in private, in scenes with just her and Charlotte, or Trey, and it was things about like Trey giving her the apartment and things like that. They're like, okay, yeah, she's gonna have an opinion about this, whereas like this woman's behavior, she would never do that.
No, she would never do that.
It's not reasonable.
No.
So you never thought the day I'd be
we miss Bunny.
Yeah, missing Trey and Bunny.
Oh.
What? But anyway, it was terrible. It was awful. And so then you also have this party that Carrie's going to. So at the beginning of the episode, Carrie runs into Enid. And how old is Carrie supposed to be? So Sarah Jessica Parker is 58.
I'm guessing that Carrie is supposed to be like 52, 53, like early 50s. What would you say? Like, that's what I was thinking.
Well, so Candice Bergen is 77. So they do have 20 years difference.
20 years,
with two actors. Okay. So the fact that Enid lumps Carrie into her peer group is bothersome to Carrie. She doesn't like that. But I guess that I can understand that. And she says, do I present as a 70-year-old retiree? And I think that she would recognize that Enid is more self-serving about that.
Totally.
Like, Enid wants to include everybody in her peer group. She wants as many people as possible to be investing in her. So it makes kind of sense. But she invites Carrie to this party. She's trying to get investors for this like magazine, basically. And Carrie thinks that she's being invited as like the guest of honor.
Yeah. And that she's going to be writing for this. And yeah.
I mean, it seems hard to believe because this is a woman who has been a columnist for, now we're going on 35 plus years.
Yeah.
So she would have been invited to lots of parties like this.
Totally.
In New York City.
Yes.
And that's why at the end, when she's just like, well, I guess I'm giving you $100,000. I was just kind of like, what? She would just leave the party.
Yeah. That didn't make
like, we can talk like later. Sense. What?
Yeah. Or I'll think about it. I'll circle back.
Yeah. But Gloria Steinem is at the party. And I mean, that did feel very Sex and the City, that we used to have, like, there would be sort of the random cameo, which was always fun. And to have Gloria Steinem there, and because Gloria Steinem, Miss Magazine, she's famous for starting a women's magazine. So it makes sense that Enid would invite her.
Yeah, I thought that the cameo by Gloria Steinem literally gained this episode 2 points for me. I was like, I love Gloria Steinem. I thought this was a really wonderful cameo. And it did feel very old school Sex and the City.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so basically there's also, Carrie ends up getting the sexed photo from Marlon, from Bitsy, and when they see that, that's part of the reason she's like embarrassed that she has that, because it's Enid's boyfriend.
Yeah, why is he texting Carrie?
Well, it was from Bitsy.
Oh,
right?
No, but he was texting Carrie because Bitsy gave him. He didn't text Carrie his junk pic.
Yeah,
Bitsy did, but he was texting her like, "Oh, hey, like, nice to meet you. A little birdie gave me your number."
Yeah, I didn't write that down, but yeah, I just wrote down the sex from Marlon via Bitsy, and because Enid sees that, then that's why she's like, to try to save face, she's like, oh, well, I'll invest in your thing.
Exactly. Yes.
But yeah.
But also, ew, I don't want to have to see a junk pic.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah. So that was the end of the episode. And like I said, I guess we're just supposed to imply that Carrie can just give 100K out at parties.
I guess Big had a lot of money that he left her. And then also she makes, I'm sure, a very good living herself. But even as Enid notes, like, oh, you came into some more money recently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this episode was better, but
yeah,
again, it was still very frustrating for me. And yeah, I just, so many of the choices don't make sense, but I did like Harry and Charlotte. That was fun. I did like the scenes with Bitsy were fun. I like Billy D. Williams and Gloria Steinem.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give this a 4. Which is better than 2.
Better than 2. I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 6. Gloria Steinem got those extra 2 points. Love Billy D. Williams. Love Victor Garber. Loved Lisa's dress. There were things to like in this episode, and it didn't make me as mad as the other one.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Well, let us know what you think. Do you enjoy these episodes? We need the positive reinforcement. Come back.
Tell us. Yeah, because
we could just
balance each other out. But...
yeah, because we could just review the end of the series at the end of the season if people aren't enjoying it. So we need that positive reinforcement. Come in and tell us that you're enjoying it. You're enjoying seeing me lose it.
It's so good. I'm enjoying seeing you lose it.
Tell us at City Girls Pod or at Hallmarks Podcast. We want to hear. But
if you sing your mom and Shay, like that would make as much sense. As much sense. Oh my gosh, yes, it would.
And but Jax, how can people find you?
At Jacqueline Collier on Instagram, and now Threads, because that's a thing that we're all doing, I guess. And Jacqueline C tweets on Twitter for however long I'll still be on Twitter.
Yes. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes and Threads. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We would sure appreciate it. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. And also, we did the Family Stone episode, which was a lot of fun. And so if there are other movies starring our Sex and the City girls that you'd like us to cover in the in-between weeks, or maybe even after, let us know in the comments. We want to hear. There's some ones that I've thought about that might be interesting. So we want to hear. And
I thought of something too. Yeah, I haven't even said this to you yet. But we can let us know what you think.
Yes. And check out the Patreon. That helps us so much. And the merch store. We got City Girls Pod merch. Take a look at that. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye.